Hello everyone, I am Mr. Night Truth. I know many of you enjoy listening to these videos as you fall asleep. So before you drift off, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. And if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, now let's get comfortable, relax, and let's go down into the story.
Story number 1, I know what you're thinking. That I'm lying. That nobody can predict death 6 months before it happens, let alone prescribe the antidote for it. But then, why do I have a cabinet full of medications with your name already printed on them? You ever open something that shouldn't exist? I don't mean something you forgot you had. I mean something that wasn't there yesterday. That's how it started. One wrong drawer. I should have been home by midnight. That's what I told myself every night after closing the pharmacy. I'd stack the last receipt, flick off the front lights, and lock the door with a click that echoed down the empty street. But last night I stayed late. I told myself it was inventory. The truth is, I just didn't want to go home. My apartment feels too loud when it's silent, like the walls are waiting for me to speak first. So I stayed in the back room, filing, counting, letting the buzz of the fluorescent lights fill my ears until I forgot what time it was. The pharmacy's back room is small, barely big enough for 2 filing cabinets and a creaky desk. The floor is linoleum, curling at the edges, and there's always this smell, a mix of rubbing alcohol and dust. I know every drawer in that room. I count them when I get anxious, which is most of the time. 7 drawers in the left cabinet, 5 in the right, all labelled, all normal, except that night. There was a drawer at the bottom of the right cabinet that wasn't labelled at all. I froze. I didn't remember seeing it before, and I don't forget things. Not like that. The metal was colder than the others when I touched it. The handle stiff, like it hadn't been opened in years. I should have walked away, locked up, gone home, but I'm not good at walking away from things I don't understand. When I yanked it open, I expected old invoices or misplaced pill bottles. Instead, I found a neat stack of prescription slips. Perfect handwriting, my handwriting, or at least that's what it looked like. I picked one up, and my stomach dropped. It was for Mrs. Kearney, my neighbour from the apartment 2 floors below mine. Sweet woman, always smelled like lavender. She'd left a pie outside my door just last week. Said I looked too thin for someone working around all that food. The prescription had her full name, her birth date, her address, and the medication, well, I didn't recognize it. I'd never heard of it before. I squinted at the name, Serathium 9. No manufacturer listed. The instructions read, 1 tablet orally, once upon cardiac arrest. I laughed nervously, set it back down, and reached for another slip. This one was for someone I didn't know. Another unreadable drug name, another impossible dosage. There were at least 20 slips in that drawer, all dated for the coming week, all written by me, or someone who knew exactly how I write my R's, how I loop my Y's. I don't know how long I stood there, flipping through them, breathing too fast. My ears rang. I told myself this was a prank. Maybe a coworker thought it'd be funny to spook me, but no one else had a key to this room. No one knew the cabinet codes. I shoved the drawer closed so hard the whole cabinet rattled. That's when I saw something else. A date, stamped at the bottom of Mrs. Kearney's slip. September 6th, 1:32 a.m. It was September 5th. The next morning, I left for work early, hoping daylight would burn off the anxiety. It didn't. The whole day felt wrong. Customers shuffled in and out, their faces blurring together. I couldn't stop glancing at the clock. Midnight came too fast, and then it was 1 a.m. By 1:15, I was pacing my kitchen, staring at the floor. By 1:25, I was leaning out my window, looking at Mrs. Kearney's. Her lights were off. At 1:32 on the dot, I heard a scream. It wasn't dramatic, not the kind of scream you hear in movies. It was short, cut off like someone pressing stop on a recording. I ran downstairs before I could talk myself out of it. She was lying in her hallway, pale and stiff, A pie tin shattered on the floor next to her. Cardiac arrest, the paramedic said. They wheeled her away under a sheet. I stood there, nodding blankly, like I'd just witnessed bad luck and nothing more. But all I could think about was the slip in that drawer, with her name and that exact time stamped on it. I didn't tell the police. Why would I? They'd never believe me. I barely believed me. Instead, I went back to the pharmacy after hours, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I told myself the drawer would be empty, that I'd imagined the whole thing. It wasn't empty. There were new slips now. A little boy's name I recognized from the candy aisle. The man who sells newspapers by the bus stop, and one more, my own name. I dropped it like it burned me. The slip fluttered to the floor, face down, and I refused to pick it up. Not yet. I should probably explain something about myself. People say I'm quiet, reserved, that I keep to myself. They're not wrong. I work, I go home, I sleep. I don't date. I don't really have friends. But there's another reason no one comes close to me. I make people uneasy. I've seen it in their eyes. The way they pause when I talk too softly, or how their smile fades when I remember too many details about them. I'm not dangerous, I just notice things. And people don't like being noticed. That's why I'm the perfect pharmacist. No one questions me when I hand them pills. No one wonders how I remember their dog's name or the time of their next appointment. So if I told someone about that drawer, about those slips, what would they think? Exactly. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the blank wall where the sunlight should have been. By morning, I was shaking so badly I had to call in sick. I told my boss I had the flu, but he didn't sound surprised. I think he's been looking for an excuse to get rid of me. I spent the day avoiding mirrors, avoiding my reflection in the microwave, in the dark glass of the TV. I kept imagining Mrs. Kearney's face as she fell, eyes wide, mouth open. Did she feel it coming? Did she know? By evening, I was back at the pharmacy. I had to see if the slips were still there. Maybe they'd vanished. Maybe I'd imagined it all. But when I opened that wrong drawer again, something was different. The slips weren't stacked neatly anymore. They were spread out, fanned like playing cards. And right at the top was mine. I picked it up with trembling hands, scanning for the date, the drug, anything to tell me this wasn't real. My eyes landed on the words stamped at the bottom. Administration time. Pending. Pending. I locked the drawer, grabbed my coat, and fled into the night. I didn't go home. I didn't even know where I was going. All I knew was that the streetlights felt dimmer, the air heavier. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me, not from the shadows, not from across the street, from behind glass. And that was only the first slip. It started with one slip of paper. Now it's in every reflection I see. I can't tell which is worse. The sound of my heart pounding, or the feeling that somewhere out there something is imitating it a second too late. I stopped going home on time. Nights blurred into mornings at the pharmacy. I'd stand over that drawer with trembling hands, flipping through the prescriptions as if my name would vanish if I stared long enough. It didn't. Each morning there were more slips. More names I recognized. More unfamiliar drug names that sounded like someone had strung together Latin roots just to mess with me. I thought maybe I was losing it. Maybe I'd been working too much, forgetting sleep, letting paranoia gnaw through me like rats in the walls. But then the glass started lying. The first time was in the bathroom. I was brushing my teeth, leaning over the sink, when I noticed something strange about my reflection. It was subtle at first. My toothbrush was in my right hand, but in the mirror it was in my left. I blinked, leaned closer, and the reflection blinked a moment later, a half-second delay. I dropped the toothbrush, water splashing onto my shirt. When I looked back up, the reflection was normal again, perfectly in sync. I told myself I was tired, that I was imagining things, but it happened again and again. In every reflective surface I passed, the glass freezer doors in the grocery store, my darkened phone screen, even the chrome spout on the pharmacy sink, my reflection was lagging. That's when I called Hannah. We hadn't spoken in over a year, not since she moved out. She'd called me paranoid then too, but back then it was about her, about whether she'd been lying to me. She swore she hadn't, but the way she said it had been too calm, too steady, like she was reading off a script. I'd accused her of cheating. She'd accused me of being obsessive, and that was the end of it. Now here I was, dialing her number like a coward at 2 a.m. She picked up on the third ring. "Hello?" Her voice was groggy, cautious. "Hannah," I whispered. There was a pause. "Why are you calling me?" I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. You need to listen. Something's happening. Something's wrong." Another pause. A sigh. "What's wrong, Daniel?" I hesitated. How do you explain something like this? The mirrors, they're not right. I think something's... Daniel. Her tone sharpened. "It's 2 a.m. No, listen. Please. There's something in them. It's me, but not me. It's slower. It's watching me." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Have you been sleeping?" she asked finally, her voice softer now. I laughed bitterly. "I'm not crazy. I didn't say you were. You don't believe me. I think you're stressed, overworked. You used to do this, remember? When you couldn't stop thinking about something until it... Until what? Until it was true?" I snapped. She flinched, even through the phone. I could hear it in the way she inhaled sharply. "Daniel," she said slowly, like she was talking to a cornered animal. "I'm worried about you. Maybe you should see someone." "Talk to a doctor!" "I am the doctor," I hissed. "I know what I see." And then I hung up. That night, I covered every reflective surface in my apartment. The bathroom mirror, the TV screen, the glass cabinet doors. I draped them all with bed sheets and towels until the place looked like a haunted house waiting for new tenants. I even turned my phone face down, afraid to see my own reflection flicker back at me. But the house didn't feel safer. The walls seemed to breathe in the dark. I sat on my couch, clutching the prescription slip with my name on it, tracing the stamped word at the bottom. Pending. Pending what? Pending when? I dozed off sometime after 4 a.m., the TV sheet rustling faintly in the draft from the window. I woke to the sound of movement. Soft, slow, deliberate. I sat up, heart pounding. The room was dark, except for the weak glow of a street lamp through the blinds. My eyes scanned the apartment. Everything was covered. Everything was still. Then I saw it. The sheet over the bathroom mirror had slipped off. It lay crumpled on the floor, as if someone had peeled it away and dropped it. I stood, every nerve in my body screaming to leave, to run, to pretend I hadn't noticed. But I moved toward the bathroom anyway, because fear makes you stupid. The mirror gleamed in the dim light, spotless and cold, and my reflection wasn't moving. It just stood there, staring back at me with hollow eyes, while I trembled in front of it. "Say something," I whispered. The reflection's lips parted. They moved silently, forming words I couldn't hear. I stumbled back, slamming into the doorway. No, it smiled. I ran, grabbed my coat, grabbed my keys. Didn't even bother putting on shoes. I just needed to be anywhere else. The pharmacy was the only place that felt familiar. So I drove there barefoot, adrenaline making me numb to the cold. I fumbled with the lock and slipped inside, breathing heavily. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, too bright, too white. The pharmacy smelled sterile, safe, normal. Until I saw the drawer. It was open. I knew I'd locked it. I always locked it, but now it sat wide open, prescription slips spilling onto the floor like fallen leaves. I dropped to my knees, grabbing handfuls of them. Names, dates, medications that didn't exist. I scanned for mine, praying it would say pending again. It didn't. The slip with my name had been updated. A new line had been stamped at the bottom in blood red ink. Administration time, 3:17 a.m. I checked my watch. 3:14, I heard it then. A soft, rhythmic tapping. I froze, heart hammering so loud I thought it would drown out the sound. But it grew louder, sharper, until I realized where it was coming from. The pharmacy's front window. Tap, tap, tap. I turned slowly, every muscle in my body locked in place. My reflection was pressed against the glass outside, palms flat against it, its head cocked at a grotesque angle. Tap, tap, tap. Its lips moved again, but this time I understood. "Let me in," I screamed, bolting for the back room, knocking over a rack of pill bottles in my panic. They scattered across the floor, rattling like bones. I slammed the door behind me, pressing my back to it, gasping for air. The tapping followed, first on the front window, then on the pharmacy mirrors, then on the polished steel of the shelves. Every reflective surface, it was everywhere. I called Hannah again, fingers trembling so badly I could barely hit the buttons. She answered on the first ring this time, voice frantic. "Daniel, what's happening?" "They know," I whispered. "It knows. What knows? Where are you?" "It's here," I sobbed, curling up on the floor. "Hannah, I can see it. It's me." "Daniel, listen to me. I'm coming to get you. Just stay where you are. Lock the doors, please." I wanted to tell her not to come, to stay far away, but the words wouldn't leave my throat, because at that moment, something knocked from the inside of the back room mirror. 3 sharp knocks. Tap, tap, tap. I always thought death would come quietly, like drifting off to sleep, but mine came printed on company letterhead, stamped with a time and date I couldn't stop watching tick closer. 3:17 a.m. That number burned in my head like a countdown I couldn't silence. I stared at the slip in my shaking hands, the red ink blurring as tears welled in my eyes. I don't even remember crying, but the paper was wet, smudged, like I'd been clutching it for hours. The tapping from the mirror grew louder, steadier. Whoever, whatever, was inside the glass wasn't impatient. It was deliberate. "Let me in," it mouthed again, its smile stretching wider than my own ever could. I stumbled backward, kicking over a wastebasket. Pill bottles rolled across the linoleum floor, scattering like dice. "Please," it mouthed, tilting its head as if mocking me. I clamped my hands over my ears, but there was no sound to block, just silence and movement. The slow, careful way its lips formed the words. I bolted for the door. The pharmacy was a maze of sharp light and reflective surfaces I hadn't noticed until that moment. Glass shelves, polished counters, even the glossy floor tiles reflected slivers of movement as I ran, the reflections grinned stretching from every angle. I knocked over racks, scattered boxes, anything to block the mirrors and windows. My heart pounded so violently, I thought it would burst before the clock struck 3:17. I needed to destroy the slip. That would stop it, right? If I destroyed it, maybe I wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Die? I skidded into the back room and threw the slip onto the desk. My hands searched for a lighter, a match, anything. There was nothing. I grabbed a pair of scissors and tried cutting through the thick cardstock, but the blades snagged and stopped like I was trying to slice through metal. "No," I whispered. I tried again, and again. Nothing. The paper wouldn't bend, wouldn't tear. It was indestructible. The clock above the door read 3:15. I felt it then, the air shifting. The fluorescent lights flickered, humming louder, as if something was drawing power from the entire building. A chill crept along my spine, sharp and unnatural, like icy fingers trailing up my neck. I turned to the mirror. It wasn't a reflection anymore, it was a window. The other me stood in a room identical to mine, but darker, colder. The walls were stained with something that looked like mold or blood. Shelves lined with shattered pill bottles. The smell of antiseptic and rot seeped through the glass like a memory. And my reflection, no, it wasn't smiling anymore. It was watching, patient, its head tilted just slightly as if studying a specimen. It raised its hand. I flinched as it pressed its palm to the glass. I could see every detail, every vein, every wrinkle, like it was closer than a reflection should be. I hesitated, then raised my own hand, trembling. Our palms lined up perfectly, and that's when I felt it. The glass was warm. I yanked my hand back, stumbling over a chair. No, this isn't real. Daniel. I froze. It spoke. The sound wasn't muffled by the glass. It was clear, sharp, and behind me. I spun around. The pharmacy was empty, but I could still hear my name echoing softly, like someone whispering into my ear from far away. Daniel, the voice said again. Sing-song. Teasing. I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy stapler, and hurled it at the mirror. The glass didn't shatter. It rippled, like water disturbed by a stone. My reflection grinned again. 16 a.m. The clock ticked louder, each second a hammer to my chest. I backed into the corner, clutching the useless scissors like a weapon. That's when my phone buzzed. I snatched it up with shaking hands. It was Hannah. Daniel, she screamed before I could speak. Where are you?
I'm outside!
Why's the door? Leave, I croaked. Hannah, you have to go. You can't. A loud bang cut me off. Daniel, what was that? I didn't answer. The banging wasn't on the front door. It was coming from the mirror. Bang. 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 I turned slowly, heart clawing at my ribs. The glass was trembling now, spiderweb cracks forming around the edges as the reflection pressed harder against it. Its grin widened, splitting unnaturally, teeth too sharp, too many. Bang! Hannah, get out of here, I whispered. Please, Daniel, talk to me. You're scaring me. Bang! The mirror exploded. Glass rained down like shards of ice, slicing into my arms, my face. I screamed, stumbling backward, shielding my eyes. When I looked up, it was already halfway through. It crawled out of the shattered frame like a spider emerging from its web, limbs bending at wrong angles. Its face was mine, but hollow, skin pale and waxy. Its eyes gleamed like polished stone, reflecting everything and nothing. I froze, paralyzed, as it stepped closer. Time's up, it whispered in my voice. 17 am. I ran. I don't remember how I made it out of the back room, or through the pharmacy, or into the street. I just remember the sound of Hannah screaming my name as I stumbled into the parking lot, barefoot, bleeding, wild-eyed. Barefoot, bleeding, wild-eyed. Daniel! Oh my God. She rushed toward me, but I staggered back, shaking my head. Don't touch me! She froze, terrified. What happened to you? Who did this? I opened my mouth to answer, but the words wouldn't come. My gaze flicked to the pharmacy window. It was standing there, watching us from inside. My reflection, my double. Its face pressed to the glass. Hannah turned to look, but by the time she did, it was gone. They took me to the hospital that night. The doctors stitched up my cuts, whispered about shock, exhaustion, hallucinations. Hannah stayed by my bed, holding my hand like we hadn't spent a year avoiding each other. I didn't tell them about the drawer, or the slip, or the thing that wore my face. But the drawer didn't stay at the pharmacy. I woke the next night to the sound of wheels squeaking on tile. When I opened my eyes, there it was, sitting at the foot of my hospital bed. The same filing cabinet, the same wrong drawer, open wide, and inside, a single slip of paper. My name, a new time. 33 a.m. I don't think anyone else sees it. The nurses don't react when they pass by. Hannah doesn't even glance at it. It's just for me now, a countdown I can't escape. I tried running once, but every mirror I pass shows me something closer than a reflection. Something pressing its face against the glass, grinning. It's waiting, and I'm tired. I don't know if this video will upload in time. Maybe you'll see it. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll find your own slip someday, tucked into some forgotten drawer. If you do, burn it, shred it, smash every mirror in your house. Not that it'll help, because I can feel it behind me right now. Breathing, smiling. Waiting for 3:33. Story number. I don't know how to explain this, but my shadow moves before I do. Sometimes I catch it turning corners a second before I follow. And the night my ex disappeared, I swear it pointed me to his body. I know shadows are supposed to follow, but mine never did. It always moved first, darting ahead of me like it knew where I was going before I did. That night, it wasn't just leading me, it was luring me. I remember the air was thick, the kind of damp September night where every streetlight hums like a warning. I was walking home late, headphones dangling silent around my neck, because I'd stopped listening to music on my evening walks months ago. Too many nights I'd heard footsteps that weren't mine, whispers curling out of alleys, and then there was the shadow, stretching impossibly long, reaching around corners before I even got there. That's when I saw it. My shadow jerked sharply to the right, bending like a broken limb, leading me into a narrow alley I'd never walked through before. I should have turned around. I should have gone home, locked the door, drawn the curtains, but I didn't. The smell hit me first, copper thick and sour in the back of my throat. The alley was dim, littered with trash and broken glass, but there, under the flickering light of a buzzing street lamp, I saw a shape. A man slumped awkwardly against the wall, his head tilted at an unnatural angle, and at his feet, a pool of blood so dark it looked like spilled ink. I don't remember screaming. I remember the way my knees buckled, the way my hand shot out to steady myself against the wall. The shadow stretched across the man's body, curling around him like it was claiming him. I stumbled backward, fumbling for my phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. By the time the police arrived, the alley was crawling with red and blue lights. Their radios crackled as they whispered to one another, glancing at me with that mixture of suspicion and pity that makes your stomach twist. One officer took my statement, asking why I'd been walking there, why I'd been alone, how I'd found the body so quickly. I didn't have answers that made sense, so I just said the first thing that came to mind. I thought I saw something move. That's when Detective Morrow appeared. He was tall, with dark hair slicked back, his expression carved in stone. He looked at me like he'd already decided who I was before I said a word. "You knew him?" he asked, nodding toward the body being loaded into the ambulance. I shook my head. "No, I've never seen him before." But that wasn't entirely true. The way his hair curled at his collar, the faint scar across his left cheek. I'd seen that face, if only in flashes. A memory buried so deep I couldn't tell if it was real. Morrow didn't press me right then. He just narrowed his eyes and said, "You're coming in tomorrow. We'll need a full statement." I nodded, numb, clutching my coat tighter around me as he walked away. The ride home felt unreal. The streets were empty, the city too quiet, like it was holding its breath. When I reached my apartment, I shut the door, locked it twice, and leaned against it, trembling. My shadow stretched across the floor in the dim light, long and thin, pointing toward the hallway like a finger. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I kept replaying the scene in my head, the way the blood glistened under the street lamp, the way the man's lifeless eyes seemed to look straight at me. And every time I closed my eyes, I swore I could see my shadow twitching, as if impatient. The next morning, Detective Morrow's office smelled faintly of stale coffee and cigarettes. He sat across from me, pen in hand, tapping it against a yellow notepad. "You say you didn't know him," he began, voice flat. "Yet you found him in an alley no one uses at 2 a.m. "I was just walking home," I said softly. "In the rain, in a neighborhood that isn't yours." I shifted in my seat. His tone was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He was dissecting me. I got turned around," I lied. He scribbled something on the pad, then leaned back. "You were the one who called it in. You didn't touch anything?" I shook my head quickly. No one else was there when you arrived? No. He stared at me for a long moment, as if weighing my answer. Then he slid a photograph across the desk. It was the victim, cleaner than he'd been in the alley, but still lifeless. His name was Alex. Ring any bells now? I froze. Alex. The name sat heavy in my chest. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to shake my head again. No, I don't know him, but I did. The name brought with it a flood of emotions I couldn't place. Anger, longing, something sharp and ugly that made my stomach churn. Morrow studied me for another moment before standing abruptly. We'll be in touch. That night, I tried to convince myself it was over, that I'd done my civic duty, called the police, given my statement. But something was wrong. I could feel it in the way the air in my apartment seemed heavier, thicker, like it was pressing down on me. I sat on the couch, lights off, staring at the faint glow of the street lamp filtering through my curtains. That's when I noticed it. My shadow on the wall, stretched long and thin. At first, I thought it was just the angle of the light, but then it moved. It shifted slowly, deliberately, until it wasn't just lying across the wall. It was pointing, its arm, my arm, extended toward the front door. My breath caught. The apartment was silent, but I could feel something, someone, on the other side of that door. I stood, heart pounding, and crept toward it. The shadow moved with me, guiding me like a leash. I pressed my ear to the door, but there was nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, just silence. I reached for the handle, hand trembling, when something slid under the crack of the door. An envelope. I froze, staring at it. Slowly, I crouched down and picked it up. The paper was rough, the handwriting on the front bold and sharp. My name. I tore it open with shaking fingers. Inside was a single piece of paper, one sentence. You shouldn't have followed me. My stomach dropped. My hands trembled so violently the letter slipped from my fingers, fluttering to the floor. The shadow loomed larger now, swallowing half the room. I stumbled back, clutching my chest, the words echoing in my head. I wasn't sure anymore if I'd followed the shadow, or if it had led me exactly where it wanted me to go. I don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember waking up. My hands were wet. That's the first thing I noticed. Wet, trembling, and red. For a second, I thought I'd been bleeding. My stomach lurched as I scrambled out of bed, heart hammering, until I realized it was just water, warm water. I was standing at the sink, the tap running full blast, my fingers wrinkled like I'd been scrubbing for hours. Except, I didn't remember getting up. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My face pale, hair sticking to my forehead with sweat. My hands moved on their own, scrubbing harder, soap foaming between my fingers until my knuckles burned. And that's when I heard it, a voice, soft, male, whispering my name. Lena. I froze, water dripping onto the tile. I knew that voice, though I couldn't place it. The sound was low, almost tender, but there was something in it that made my skin crawl. I turned off the tap, straining to listen, but there was nothing, just the faint hum of the bathroom light. I wrapped a towel around my hands, trying to steady my breathing, and wandered back into the apartment. My gaze flicked to the letter lying on the floor where I'd dropped it the night before. I hadn't moved it, couldn't bring myself to. I picked it up now, tracing the handwriting with my fingertip. It was mine, every curve, every loop of the letters, but I had no memory of writing it. The words echoed in my head. You shouldn't have followed me. Followed who? Detective Morrow called that afternoon. Come down to the station, he said simply. His voice gave nothing away, but I could feel his suspicion pressing through the phone. The station was cold, the air smelling faintly of disinfectant. Morrow led me to a small interrogation room, and sitting across from him was a woman I'd never met before. She was slender, her dark hair pulled into a tight ponytail, her expression unreadable. "This is Anna," Morrow said. "Alex's sister." Anna's eyes locked on mine, sharp and unflinching. "You knew him," she said, her voice soft but certain. I swallowed. "I told the detective I didn't." Her gaze flicked to Morrow, then back to me. "You're lying." "I'm not." She leaned forward. "You were in love with him, weren't you?" The question knocked the breath out of me. "No," I whispered. Morrow leaned back in his chair, studying me like he was watching a play unfold. "You've been evasive," he said. "Anna says Alex mentioned someone. A girl he'd been seeing, secretly. Someone complicated." I shook my head, my hands gripping the edge of the table. "That wasn't me." Anna tilted her head. "He told me her name," she said softly. "Lena." The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the table tighter, knuckles white. My throat felt tight, but I forced a shaky laugh. "You're mistaken." Anna's expression didn't change. "You know he was afraid of you." I froze. She leaned closer. "He told me you were obsessed, that you followed him, that you..." She trailed off, her eyes narrowing. "Did you kill him?" The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Morrow broke the silence. "Where were you the night Alex died, Lena?" My voice cracked. "I told you. I was walking home. I didn't even know him." Morrow's jaw tightened. "We have a witness," he said slowly. "A neighbor saw you leaving Alex's house, around midnight, the night he was killed." The words slammed into me like a physical blow. "That's not possible," I whispered. But even as I said it, something stirred in my memory. A flash, a door, a hand reaching for mine, his voice whispering something I couldn't quite make out. My stomach churned. "I wasn't there," I said, forcing the words out through clenched teeth. Morrow studied me for a long moment, then leaned forward. "You're going to have to do better than that." That night I dreamed of blood. I was sitting at my kitchen table, pen in hand, writing on a piece of paper. The words blurred before I could read them, but I knew what they said. My hand moved faster, scratching letters onto the page, until I noticed something dripping from the pen. Blood. Thick, dark drops splattering across the paper, smearing the words. I looked down at my hand and saw the pen was gone. I was writing with my finger, dragging bloody letters across the page. I woke up with a jolt, gasping for breath, my hands trembling. The sheets were damp with sweat, and when I turned on the light, my stomach lurched. My fingertips were red. I scrambled to the bathroom, scrubbing them raw under the tap, but the stain clung stubbornly. I didn't know if it was real or just in my head anymore. The next day, I heard voices outside my apartment door. I pressed my ear against it, heart pounding. 2 women were talking in hushed tones. "Do you think she knows?" One whispered. "She has to," the other replied. She was there. Their footsteps retreated down the hall, and I sank to the floor, clutching my knees. I didn't leave my apartment for the rest of the day. The shadows in the room seemed longer now, darker. Every time I moved, they moved just a fraction too late, as if they were mimicking me instead of following. When night fell, I curled up on the couch, staring at the ceiling. That's when I heard it again. "Lena," his voice. I bolted upright, scanning the room. The apartment was empty, but the sound had been close, right behind me. I turned toward the window and froze. There, in the reflection, was my shadow, but it wasn't attached to me. It was standing on its own, a dark silhouette with arms outstretched. My breath hitched. I spun around, but there was nothing there. When I looked back at the window, the shadow was gone. The knock on my door made me jump. I approached cautiously, pressing my ear against it, but whoever was there wasn't speaking. My hands shook as I unlocked it, inching it open. No one, just a single object on the doormat, a photograph. I picked it up slowly, heart hammering. It was me, standing in front of Alex's house. The date scrawled on the back matched the night he died. My breath quickened. I stumbled back inside, locking the door, clutching the photo like it might bite me. How could I not remember this? I sank to the floor, staring at the image. My shadow in the photo stretched long across the pavement, curling toward the house like a leash. I tried to tell myself it wasn't real, that someone was framing me, that the whispers, the letters, the dreams, they weren't evidence of guilt. They were evidence of something else, something darker, but deep down, I knew the truth. The body wasn't the only thing that remembered. So did I. And my shadow wasn't following me anymore. It was leading me somewhere I didn't want to go. I'd like to say I was brave, that I fought back against the fear clawing its way through my chest. But the truth is simpler. I locked myself in that apartment and hid. The curtains stayed drawn, the lights off. My phone vibrated endlessly with calls I didn't answer. Detective Morrow, Anna, numbers I didn't recognize. Each ring made me jump. Each shadow sliding across the walls felt heavier, darker. It's strange how quickly time blurs when you're scared. I don't remember eating, don't remember showering. I just remember pacing, watching the door, watching the shadows creep longer across the walls until they no longer seemed bound to me at all. And then, one night, I heard the scratching. At first, I thought it was rats in the walls. A slow, deliberate sound like nails dragging across wood. It came from the front door. I crept closer, breath shallow, and pressed my ear against it. The scratching stopped. Then came a whisper, soft and hoarse, like it was coming from the other side of the door, but right against my ear. "Lena, open it." I stumbled back, clutching my chest. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My shadow stretched across the hallway floor, reaching for the door like it wanted to answer. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a kitchen knife, and backed into the living room. The scratching started again, louder this time, insistent. I bolted for my bedroom and slammed the door, locking it. The knife trembled in my grip as I pressed myself against the wall. The scratching grew louder, faster, like claws raking against wood. Then silence. For a long time, I didn't move, didn't breathe. Finally, I forced myself to open the door. The apartment was dark and still, but something lay on the floor in front of the door. Another envelope. My hands shook as I picked it up. Same handwriting. Mine. Inside. "Stop running. We're almost there." That night, I dreamed of Alex. He was standing at the end of the alley where I'd first found him, his face pale and bloodied. He didn't speak, just watched me, the shadow at his feet stretched out like a rope, curling around my ankles, pulling me toward him. I tried to scream, but my throat locked up. When I woke, there was blood on my sheets. Not much, just a smear near my pillow, a streak across my arm. I stumbled to the bathroom, scrubbing myself raw, whispering over and over, "I didn't do this. I didn't." But a part of me, the part that couldn't remember that night, wasn't so sure. Detective Morrow came by the next day. He stood in my doorway, his expression unreadable. "You didn't answer your phone," he said. I wasn't feeling well." He studied me for a long moment. "We need you to come in again." I shook my head. "I don't know anything else." "Lena," he said, voice soft but firm, "this isn't going away." His words sent a shiver down my spine. He was right. I couldn't stay here forever, hiding in the dark. Something was happening, something I couldn't explain, and no amount of pretending would make it stop. I grabbed my coat and followed him. The station felt colder this time. Morrow led me to the same interrogation room. Anna was waiting, sitting perfectly still with her hands folded in her lap. Her eyes were red, but her expression was calm. "You killed him," she said simply. "No," I whispered. "You loved him." I shook my head. "I didn't. You followed him everywhere. You couldn't let him go." Her voice was so steady it unnerved me. Morrow didn't interrupt. He just watched me, his gaze sharp. Do you even remember that night? Anna asked softly. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. My memories of that night were fractured. Flashes of movement, whispers, a door opening. My shadow leading me forward. I don't know, I admitted. Anna's lips curled into something between pity and disgust. He was afraid of you, she said. He told me you wouldn't stop. I slammed my hands on the table. I didn't kill him! The words echoed in the small room. Morrow leaned forward, his voice calm. Then explain this. He slid another photograph across the table. It was me standing in Alex's kitchen. Blood spattered on the counter behind me. My shadow stretched across the floor like a second figure. My breath caught. That's not real, I whispered. Morrow's jaw tightened. It's from a security camera. I shook my head violently. It's not real. But even as I said it, the memory flickered. The smell of blood. The cold tile under my feet. Alex's voice soft and pleading. My shadow moving first. I shoved the photo back toward Morrow, tears stinging my eyes. Someone's framing me. Or, Anna said softly, you're finally remembering. That night, I couldn't stay in the apartment. I grabbed a backpack, stuffed it with essentials, and left. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to move. I couldn't let the shadows trap me there. The streets were empty, the air heavy with fog. Street lamps flickered overhead. My shadow stretched ahead of me, twisting around corners before I could see what lay beyond them. I followed it. I don't know why. It led me through alleys, down streets I didn't recognize, past boarded-up shops and darkened houses. My feet ached, but I couldn't stop. The shadow darted ahead like it was pulling me on a leash. And then I saw it. Alex's house. The front door was ajar. I stood frozen at the edge of the yard, heart pounding. The shadow slipped inside before I could move. My legs carried me forward, trembling. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of dust and something metallic. The lights were off, but I didn't need them. I knew where to go. The kitchen. The blood stain was still there, dark and sticky against the tile. My knees buckled as memories flooded back. Alex's voice, his hands raised, the knife glinting in my hand. I didn't mean to, I whispered. But even as I said it, another voice whispered back, soft and familiar. Yes, you did. I spun around, but the room was empty, except for my shadow. It stretched across the floor, no longer mimicking my movements. It was standing on its own now, towering over me. Stop, I whispered, backing away. The shadow moved closer. Please. It reached for me, and I stumbled back into the kitchen table. My hand brushed something cold, an envelope. I grabbed it, tearing it open with trembling hands. Inside, you did it. I just helped you remember. I dropped the letter. My shadow loomed larger, swallowing the room. The truth hit me like a physical blow. I had killed Alex, but I hadn't done it alone. The shadow had led me, guided me, and now it wanted me to finish what I'd started. I don't know how long I've been in this house now. Hours, days. The sun doesn't rise anymore. The windows are just dark glass, like mirrors reflecting back my fear. The shadow stays close, whispering softly, guiding my hands as I write these words. If anyone finds this, know that I didn't mean for it to happen. Not at first, but now. Now I think I was always meant to, and I think I know who's next. Story number 3. They told me the town didn't exist, not just that it was abandoned, but that it had never been real. Just a name buried in some old government paperwork. But if that's true, then tell me why I still remember living there, and why I can't explain how I got out. You ever see a place on paper that shouldn't exist, but you still remember living there? That's what happened to me, and I swear, no matter what the records say, that town was real. I wasn't even looking for it. I was at the library scrolling through a digital archive of survey maps for a project I don't even remember anymore. Boring bureaucratic stuff. But then my eyes snagged on a name printed in faded ink, tucked between 2 county borders. a name I knew too well, the town where I grew up, except no one else had ever heard of it. At first, I thought it was a glitch, maybe an old draft, a town that got renamed, but when I searched the database, nothing came up. Census reports, empty, postal records, never existed. It was as if the place had been scrubbed out of history. And yet there it was, spelled out in shaky letters across an old government map. My stomach knotted, because I knew that town wasn't imaginary. I could picture the streets, the broken sidewalks, the school with the rusted playground. I could remember nights sitting by the water tower with her, the one person who made that place feel less like a cage and more like home. I can't say her name. Not yet. But I remember her laugh, sharp and reckless, carrying across the field when everyone else was asleep. I remember her fingers brushing mine like it was an accident, though it never was. I remember the way she'd whisper, "We have to get out of here," and how I'd nod even though I wasn't ready to leave. I should have left when she wanted to. Maybe then none of this would have happened. The deeper I dug, the stranger it got. I searched for obituaries, property sales, anything that could prove the town had been real. Nothing. It was like someone had poured bleach over every scrap of evidence until only a faint outline remained. But bleach doesn't erase memories. That's what I kept telling myself as the nights blurred together. My desk littered with printouts and scribbled notes. I compared aerial photos, old newspaper clippings, even weather reports. There were gaps, places where the data just cut off, like the world had blinked and forgotten. And still, I remembered. The diner with the sticky floors, the corner store where we'd steal candy when we were too broke to pay, the old quarry where we'd lie on our backs and count satellites until the sun came up. She was always there in those memories, always pushing me further than I wanted to go, always daring me to cross lines I didn't think I could. Maybe that's why I stayed obsessed with the paperwork, because every time I stared at the map, at the name of the town that officially didn't exist, I felt like I was staring at her too, like she was hiding in the margins, waiting for me to find her again. I told myself it was just nostalgia, but the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of why the records didn't match my memories, afraid of what I'd done the night I left. See, when you grow up in a place like that, you think you'll never leave. The roads don't lead anywhere. The horizon just circles you back in. But she wanted more. She wanted out. And the last night we spoke, if you could call it speaking, was the night she told me she'd found a way. Only, I didn't follow. I can still see her face in the glow of the streetlight, her eyes furious, mouth trembling. She said I'd regret it, that I'd regret staying behind, that the town itself was already dying. And maybe she was right, because when I went back the next day, she was gone. No note, no goodbye, no trace. And then the town itself vanished too. Not physically, of course. The buildings were still there for a while. But on paper, on record, in the eyes of the world, it was as if it had never existed. So when I found that map, her town, our town, I couldn't let it go. It was proof that I wasn't crazy, proof that she was real, that I didn't imagine her or invent a past to fill the empty years. But the more I clung to that proof, the more the details started to slip. Some nights I remembered her hair being dark. Other nights it was light. Some nights she kissed me first. Other nights I swore I kissed her. Even her name, it flickered, like static, on the edge of my mind. Maybe that's why the records were blank. Maybe I've been the one rewriting things all along. I tried talking about it once, to someone who knew me back then. I asked if they remembered the town. They just gave me this long, pitying look, like I'd confessed to hearing voices. They said I must be confusing it with someplace else, that I'd been under a lot of stress. But I know stress doesn't explain the photographs I found in an old shoebox last week. Photographs of streets I shouldn't remember, of faces blurred by age but one unmistakable, hers, standing next to me, hand brushing mine, just like I said, Only, the problem is, in one of the photos, there's someone else standing behind us. Someone I don't remember. Someone staring straight into the lens like they knew I'd find it one day. I haven't told anyone about that photo. Not yet. Because I'm starting to think, maybe the records are right. Maybe the town never existed the way I remember. Maybe she never did either. But if that's true, then who's the girl in those photographs? And who's the man behind us, smiling like he knows the ending before I do? The map was proof, yes, but it wasn't the only thing I found. There was something else. Something I wish I'd burned. You ever hold something in your hands that feels heavier than its weight, like it's dragging your whole past back with it? That's how it felt when I found the folder in my basement. It wasn't there before. I know that sounds impossible, but I swear I'd searched every box, every moldy corner 12 times. And yet, one night, tucked beneath a stack of old tax returns it appeared, yellowed manila, warped with moisture, the edges curling like it had been waiting for me. I should have burned it. God, I should have. But instead, I opened it. Inside were documents, handwritten reports, photocopied letters, even faded Polaroids. They all pointed to the same place, the same town, my town, the one that wasn't supposed to exist. Only the details didn't match my memory. One letter claimed the town had been condemned in 1978, before I was even born. Another listed its population as fewer than 50, when I remembered crowded classrooms and busy streets. A report from some government agency I'd never heard of described psychological leakage, whatever that meant, as if the place itself was an infection. And then there were the photos, buildings I half recognized, but with signs in the windows I couldn't read, letters scrambled like they belonged to a language I'd never learned, faces of children that looked familiar but not quite, like bad copies of kids I'd grown up with. And always, somewhere near the corner of the frame, him, the man I didn't remember, the man from the photo in the shoebox. I slammed the folder shut and shoved it back under the boxes like hiding it could erase what I'd seen. But the damage was done. The images were in my head, carved there, impossible to scrape out. For nights I didn't sleep. Every creak in the house made me think the man from the photos was here, waiting just out of sight. I told myself it was paranoia, exhaustion. But then the phone rang. It was her brother. I hadn't spoken to him in years, not since she disappeared. His voice was rougher, heavier, like he'd aged 2 decades in half the time. "You still chasing ghosts?" he asked. My throat went dry. "What do you mean?" He gave this sharp, humorless laugh. "You know what I mean. I saw you in the archive." I froze. "The archive? I don't know what you're talking about," I lied. "You were there," he said. "2 nights ago, down in the basement, flipping through files that don't belong to you. I watched you. I wanted to hang up, but my hand wouldn't move." "That's not possible," I whispered. "Stop digging," he told me. "Whatever you think you're going to find, it won't be her." The line went dead. I stared at the receiver, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. How did he know about the basement, about the folder, unless he put it there himself? I didn't want to believe it, but part of me hoped it was true. At least that would mean the man in the photos wasn't real. At least that would mean I wasn't losing my mind. The next evening, I went back down. The folder was gone. All that remained was a single Polaroid on the floor, face down. When I picked it up, my skin went cold. It was me, standing outside the old water tower, the same one where she and I used to sit, except I looked older. Not the age I was when we left, the age I am now. And next to me, smiling like he belonged there, was her brother. That's when I knew this wasn't just about memory. Someone was pulling strings. Someone wanted me to see these things. The next day, I found him waiting outside my house. He looked thinner than I remembered, eyes ringed with sleepless shadows, but his stare was sharp, burning with something between rage and pity. You shouldn't have kept looking, he said. What's going on? I demanded. Why are there records? Why is the town gone? He stepped closer, so close I could smell smoke on his jacket. Because it was never meant to be remembered. You understand that, don't you? I shook my head. No, she was real. I loved her. I remember everything. He smiled then, but it wasn't kind. You remember what you need to, not what happened. What do you mean? She left, he said simply. She left because of you. My chest tightened. No, she didn't. She couldn't have. You think the town vanished on its own? You think files just erase themselves? Someone had to cover it up. Someone had to bury the pieces. I swallowed hard. Are you saying it was me? He didn't answer. He just looked at me, long enough that I wanted to scream. Then he whispered, some destinations exist only in paperwork, and you're the one who wrote it. I blinked, and he was gone. I don't mean he walked away. I mean, 1 second he was standing in front of me, the next the street was empty. Not a door closing, not footsteps fading, just silence. I backed into my house and locked the door, shaking so bad I could barely stand. Was he ever there at all? That night, I dreamed of the basement, of the folder waiting for me. But when I opened it, the papers were blank, every page white, except for the last one. It said, she's still there. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, the taste of dust in my mouth. And when I went downstairs, there was dirt on the basement steps, fresh footprints, not mine. So maybe he's right. Maybe I've been chasing ghosts. Maybe I've been writing my own past into existence, one forged document at a time. But the footprints are real. The photo was real, and I can't stop wondering if she's waiting for me, trapped somewhere between memory and paper. Because if she is, I have to go back, and I have to see what's left of the town. You ever drive somewhere that isn't supposed to exist, but the road takes you there anyway? That's what happened the night I went back. I told myself it was curiosity, closure, obsession, whatever makes it sound less insane. The truth? I couldn't stop hearing her voice. Not out loud, not in dreams, just a whisper at the edge of my thoughts, urging me back. I left after midnight. The road stretched black and endless, highway signs flickering past like broken memories. At first, everything looked familiar. The gas stations, the fields, the distant lights of towns that actually exist. But then the markers thinned and the GPS froze. Just a blinking arrow on an empty screen. Still, I drove on. After an hour, I reached the turnoff. It shouldn't have been there. The map said nothing existed beyond that point. Yet there it was, a cracked road curving into the woods, just wide enough for one car. My headlights caught the faded outline of a sign, letters peeling away. I swear it said the town's name, the one no one believes in. As I drove in, the trees pressed close, their branches scraping against the roof like fingernails. My chest tightened with every mile, and then, suddenly, the forest opened. There it was, the town, not bustling, not alive, just frozen. Buildings sagging with rot, windows blind with dust, street lamps tilting like drunks. But it was there, exactly where it wasn't supposed to be. I pulled over near the water tower, the same one from the photos, the same one from my memories. I stepped out, my breath visible in the cold air, and for a second, I felt like a kid again, like I could almost hear her laugh carrying across the fields. But then the silence closed in. I wandered the streets. The diner was still there, its sign swinging in the wind. The school loomed in the distance, windows cracked like shattered teeth. Every corner held echoes I couldn't pin down. And then I saw him, the man from the photos, standing at the far end of the street, too far for me to see his face. But I knew it was him. I froze, heart hammering. "Who are you?" I shouted, no answer. He just turned the corner and vanished. I followed. I shouldn't have, but I did. Down alleys that twisted the wrong way, past houses I half recognized. My footsteps echoed louder than they should have, like the town was hollow underneath. Finally, I reached the house. Our house. The one she and I used to sneak into when we wanted to be alone. Its windows were boarded, the porch sagging, but I knew it instantly. The front door was already open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and mildew. I could see the faint outline of furniture where we once sat, the stains on the floor where we spilled soda, the staircase we raced up when we thought the world was ending, and at the top of the stairs, him again, closer now, watching. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. "What do you want from me?" I demanded. This time, he spoke. His voice was low, steady, like it belonged to someone who'd been practicing for years. "She's still here." My skin went cold. "Where?" He didn't answer. He just turned and walked into the bedroom. I followed, every step heavier than the last. The room was empty, except for a single piece of paper on the floor. A map, not the one I'd found in the archive. This one was hand-drawn, scribbled in shaky lines, but it showed the same town, and marked with an X was the quarry. I grabbed it, but when I looked up, the man was gone. My pulse thundered as I stumbled out of the house, clutching the map like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. The quarry was only a mile away. My legs carried me faster than I thought possible. When I reached it, the moon was high, casting silver over jagged rock. I climbed down into the pit, the air colder, thicker, and there, at the center, was her. At least I think it was her. She was sitting on the ground, head bowed, hair falling over her face. My chest clenched so tight I thought I'd collapse. "Hey," I whispered, stepping closer. "It's me. I found you." Slowly she lifted her head. Her eyes were wrong, too wide, too dark. Her smile trembled at the edges. "You finally came back," she said. Tears burned my eyes. "I thought you were gone. You left me," she interrupted. Her voice wasn't angry, it was worse. It was calm. I shook my head. "No, I wanted to..." "You left me," she repeated louder this time. I dropped to my knees. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do. Everything was falling apart." "Do you even remember my name?" she asked. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. My mind scrambled, grasping at sounds, syllables, but they slipped like water through my fingers. Her smile faded. That's what I thought. The ground shook, not like an earthquake, more like the town itself exhaled. Dust rained down, the rocks groaned, and in the distance I swore I heard voices. Dozens of them, hundreds, all whispering. She stood, her eyes never leaving mine. "This town remembers, even if you don't." And then, she was gone. I was alone in the quarry, clutching the map, the whispers closing in. I ran. I don't remember how I got back to the car, how I made it out of the woods. All I remember is the silence when I pulled into my driveway, the folder waiting on the porch, the same folder I'd hidden, the same one her brother told me not to touch. I brought it inside, hands shaking, opened it. Every page was filled now. Not blank, not faded, filled, with my handwriting, confessions I don't remember writing, descriptions of things I don't remember doing. Every lie I've told you, every truth I've twisted, it was all there. And at the bottom of the last page, scrawled in frantic ink, "Some destinations exist only in paperwork that no one was meant to find. I don't know if the town was ever real. I don't know if she was. But if you're still watching this, check your basement, because if the folder's not here anymore, it might be there." Story number 4. I never told anyone what I said that night. Not the police, not the neighbors, not even myself when I look in the mirror. But the machine remembers every word, every silence, and it keeps playing it back, even though it was never supposed to be listening. I never pressed record. That's the part nobody seems to understand. I never pressed record, and yet my voice is on the tape. That's how this started. Not with a scream or a fight or blood on the floor. No, with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but heavy, like someone else is holding their breath in the same room. I've lived here for years, alone. That word always sounds sharp, doesn't it? Alone. But it doesn't bother me, not really. I've always talked to myself, just little things. Reminders, confessions, thoughts too fragile to keep inside my skull. Sometimes it helps to hear them out loud, or at least it used to. The apartment's old. You can tell by the wiring, half the sockets spark if you look at them wrong, and the intercom system on the wall. You know the kind. Big yellowed plastic box, scratched speaker grill, a button you're never sure still works. Nobody uses it. Nobody buzzes. It's been dead for as long as I've been here. But then one night, it wasn't. I'd been pacing the kitchen, mumbling the way I do when the walls feel too close. I said something I shouldn't have. Words I've never admitted before. Doesn't matter what they were. You wouldn't believe me anyway. A secret. A slip of the tongue. And the second I said it, the intercom clicked. Just a tiny pop, like static clearing its throat. And then, my voice. My exact words played back, like someone hit rewind and pressed play. Only the timing was wrong. It wasn't a clean echo. It was delayed, like someone else had been sitting on the other side of the line, deciding whether or not to repeat me. I froze. My first thought? Wires. Old buildings do weird things with sound. Maybe I'd caught interference from a neighbor's TV, but it wasn't a TV show. It was me. You shouldn't have said that. That's what I heard next. My own voice, but lower, as if dragged through sandpaper. And I swear to you, I never said those words out loud. That's when I realized I wasn't alone. Not really, I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I shut my eyes, I imagined the intercom glowing, recording, waiting for me to slip again. And maybe it was paranoia, but the more I listened, the more I realized it had been listening for a long time. Because the next night, it played back something older, a fragment of a conversation I'd had weeks before, one I'd forgotten about. I'd been talking to my neighbor. She lived just down the hall. Sweet voice, always humming when she walked by. Sometimes she'd stop me on the stairs, ask about my day, tell me about hers. She liked jasmine tea. She smelled like it too. I never told her how much I noticed that, how much I noticed her. But that night, the intercom played a sentence from one of our last talks, my voice saying something soft, something I'd whispered under my breath after she left, words I never thought anyone would hear. And then her voice answered, faint, fragile, but hers. Why didn't you tell me? I stumbled back so hard I nearly tripped over the chair. Because she wasn't in the apartment, she wasn't anywhere near me. But I knew that voice. I'd heard it too many times to mistake it. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at that dead plastic box, waiting for it to speak again. My chest was tight, every hair on my arm standing straight, and then the silence returned. The next morning, I told myself it was a dream, a hallucination. Maybe I'd been too tired. But the tape, yes, there was a tape. I don't remember putting it in. I didn't even know the machine still had that function. But when I checked the slot, a cassette sat inside, warm, as if it had just finished recording. And when I pressed play, I heard everything again. My voice, her voice. Words twisted into something I couldn't control. I should have destroyed it then. I should have smashed the tape, ripped the wires out of the wall, but I didn't. Because deep down, I wanted to hear more. That's what makes me guilty, isn't it? Not of what they think, but of something else. Of listening when I should have turned away. The next time it happened, I tried to talk back. Who's there? I asked, my mouth dry, the words scraping out, and the reply came, clear as day. You know, but I don't. At least I don't think I do. Unless I'm lying to myself. Unless part of me remembers more than I'm willing to admit. That night, I heard her again. My neighbor, only this time she wasn't calm. Please, she whispered. Please don't leave me here. Where is here? I pressed the button, begged for an answer, but all I got was static. Do you understand now why I can't go to the police? Why I can't explain this without sounding insane? Machines don't just record conversations at random. They don't play back secrets you've buried, and they sure as hell don't capture voices that shouldn't be alive anymore. Because here's the part I haven't told you yet. She's gone. Vanished. No one's seen her in weeks. People whisper about where she went, but no one has answers. And me, I'm the last person who spoke to her. At least, that's what they'll say. But I didn't hurt her. I need you to believe that. Still, I can't stop wondering. If I didn't, then why does the intercom keep replaying our last conversation? Why does it linger on her voice, stretched out, like she's still trying to reach me from somewhere I can't follow? And why, last night when I leaned close to the speaker, did I hear something new? Not just her, not just me, another voice, low, mechanical, whispering. This is only the beginning. They keep asking me what I remember, but memory doesn't play like a tape. It skips, it rewinds, sometimes it lies. Just like me. That's what I told the detective the first time he came knocking. I thought it was clever, deflecting, making him uncomfortable. But he didn't laugh. He just wrote something in his notebook without looking up, and the sound of his pen scratching felt louder than my voice. The neighbors had started talking, whispers slinking down the hallway, curling under my door. They said she'd gone missing, my neighbor, the one whose voice I'd heard bleeding through that dead intercom, begging for something I couldn't give. And of course, because people need someone to blame, their eyes landed on me. I didn't mind at first. Let them suspect. The truth is slipperier than they realize. The truth doesn't sit still, but then the machine played something new. I was lying awake, the cassette still in its slot, when the intercom hissed alive. At first, it was just the usual fragments of my voice, repeated back like a cruel mimic. But then, her again. Don't leave me in the dark. Her voice cracked in ways I'd never heard when she was alive. No, wait, I didn't mean to say alive, I meant when she was here. She might still be alive, somewhere. I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know what's memory, what's recording, and what's me inventing things to fill the gaps. The next day, I told the building manager. Old man, always smells like bleach and cigarette smoke. I cornered him by the mailboxes, tried to explain that the intercom wasn't dead, that it was capturing things it shouldn't. You've been here long enough to know that box doesn't work, he said flatly. Not even looking at me. It does, I snapped. It plays things back. My voice. Her voice, that made him pause. His eyes twitched, but only for a second. Then he shook his head and muttered, "You're hearing echoes. Old wiring. Forget it." But I couldn't forget it, because the night after that, the intercom played a full conversation I swear never happened. Me, calm, steady, saying things I would never dare to say, and her, laughing, then suddenly crying. It was stitched together like someone had cut up our words and glued them into something new, something uglier. I didn't remember saying half of it, but the voice was mine. So when the detectives came knocking, I knew exactly why. Two of them. One tall and silent, the other short with a mouth that wouldn't stop moving. They asked about her, about when I'd last seen her. I told them she'd stepped into my apartment once, but only for tea. That part was true. Or maybe it wasn't. You said tea, the short one repeated. But no one else remembers her drinking tea. They say she didn't like it. He leaned forward, like he'd caught me in a trap. But I smiled, because I knew something they didn't. She told me she liked jasmine. She told me herself. Unless I dreamed that too. Unless the machine fed it to me. They asked if we argued. If she ever rejected me. If I'd ever felt angry at her. I told them no. Easy answer. But in my head, I heard my voice on the tape. That strange version of me, sharper and crueler. You shouldn't have said that. What if that was me after all? I keep telling myself I didn't hurt her, over and over like a prayer. But the more I listen to the tapes, the more I wonder if some part of me broke off and did something without telling the rest of me. Because how else do you explain the things I hear at night? Last night, for example, the playback changed again. It didn't just repeat voices. It played sounds, shuffling footsteps, something like a door creaking open, and then a thud, heavy, Final. I slammed the stop button, my hands shaking so hard I nearly snapped it off. But curiosity is poison. I pressed play again. And there it was. A whisper, almost too soft to hear. You promised. I don't remember making any promise, but the way she said it, accusing, broken, it lodged in my chest like a splinter. When the detectives came back the next day, I tried to explain. I told them about the tapes, about the intercom. They stared at me like I'd just confessed to burying her under the floorboards. "There's no tape," the tall one said finally. "We checked the system. That intercom hasn't been wired in years." Liar. Or maybe he wasn't lying. Maybe the system had been dead until my words gave it something to feed on. Do you see the problem now? I can't prove what I'm hearing. I can only tell you. And telling you makes me sound guilty. But staying silent makes me sound worse. The building manager won't meet my eyes anymore. Every time I pass his office, I hear the hiss of a cassette player through the thin door. Does he have his own tapes? Does he know more than he admits? Or maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe I'm imagining everything, because sometimes when I rewind, the voices don't just echo. They change. They argue. With me. Against me. "You brought me here," she says. "No," I whisper back. "You left me," she insists. "I didn't." And then the machine cuts me off, my own voice spitting venom I don't remember recording. "You wanted this. Do you understand why I can't trust myself anymore? The detectives will come again, I know it, and when they ask, I won't have answers. I'll only have these tapes, these shifting ghosts of conversations, none of which will make sense to anyone but me. Still, part of me doesn't want it to stop, because if the tapes end, so does her voice, and I'm not ready for silence again. But if I keep listening, I'm afraid of what I'll hear next, because last night, just before the tape clicked off, just before the machine went quiet, it wasn't her voice or mine. It was the tall detective, clear as glass. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Only problem. He never spoke those words to me, not out loud, so how the hell did the machine know? If you rewind something too many times, the tape stretches, the voices blur, and eventually you can't tell if you're hearing the past or what's coming next." That's where I am now, stuck between past and future, between what I did and what I keep telling myself I didn't do. The intercom hasn't gone silent in days. Every night it breathes to life, spitting fragments, twisting them, layering them until the apartment feels crowded with echoes. I can't walk from the kitchen to the bedroom without stepping on my own voice, warped and broken, repeating things I don't remember saying. And hers, always hers. Sometimes she pleads, sometimes she accuses, sometimes she just laughs. A sound so wrong it makes my teeth ache. I tried to unplug the box, yanked at the wires until my hands bled, but when I woke up the next morning it was still on the wall, humming like I'd never touched it. The detectives came again. I didn't answer the door, but I heard them in the hallway. Their voices drifted in through the crack under the door, muffled but sharp enough to cut. "Neighbor says he's been talking to himself again," one of them muttered. "He's unraveling," the other replied. I pressed my ear to the wood, desperate because I needed to know if they'd found her, if they knew more than I did. But all I heard was the tall one sighing. "We'll get 'em on the tapes. The tapes." That's when it hit me. They weren't dismissing me. They were listening too. Maybe they had their own recordings. Maybe everyone in this building had a machine in their walls, quietly swallowing conversations, deciding which truths to spit back out. That night, I made a decision. I'd confront it. Not the detectives, not the manager, not even the neighbors. The machine. I sat cross-legged on the floor in front of the intercom, cassette ready, and whispered into the grill. "What do you want from me?" For a long time there was only static, and then slow and deliberate, my own voice answered. Confession. I felt sick. Because isn't that what I'm doing now? Isn't that what this is? All these words spilling out like blood from a wound. But confess to what? I didn't kill her. At least, I don't think I did. See, that's the part that keeps me awake. The machine plays things I can't explain. Like the other night, when I heard footsteps dragging, something heavy scraping across the floor, then a door slamming, and then silence, broken by her voice whispering, "It hurt." I don't remember that happening, but if it didn't, why does it sound so real? I tried to prove it wasn't true. I rewound the tape over and over, listening for seams, for splices, for some sign it was fabricated. But the more I listened, the more certain I became. Whether it was real or not, it belonged to me. The building manager knocked yesterday. His face was pale, eyes darting past me like he didn't want to meet them. "You need to stop," he said flatly. "Stop what?" I asked. "Stop listening, that's all." He didn't wait for an answer, just turned and shuffled down the hall, muttering under his breath like a prayer. And then I realized he hears it too. He knows. Maybe he's been listening longer than I have. Maybe that's why the smell of bleach never leaves his clothes. But the detectives won't believe that. They'll only believe the tapes. I can feel them closing in. The whispers are louder, the knocks harder. My apartment isn't safe anymore. The walls hum with suspicion. So tonight, I tried something different. Instead of waiting for the intercom to start, I pressed the record button myself, spoke directly into it, told the truth, or at least the closest I could get. I said I never meant to hurt her, but I loved her voice, the way it filled the hallway like music, that I never wanted her to stop talking to me. And then I said her name. The machine shuddered like it was choking. The tape spun faster. My voice warped, splintered, split into layers until it sounded like 100 versions of me speaking at once. And underneath it all, faint but certain, came her reply. "You already did." I dropped the recorder. It kept spinning, faster, faster, until smoke curled from the slot. And then, in a voice I didn't recognize, neither hers nor mine, the machine spoke. Erase and rewind. And just like that, the tape snapped. The silence that followed was worse than the voices, because it wasn't empty. It was waiting. I haven't left the apartment since. The detectives pound on the door, but I don't open. I can't. If they come in, they'll see the tapes, the wires, the way the walls are breathing now. They'll see me curled on the floor, listening, always listening. I keep telling myself I didn't kill her, but the more the tapes play, the less I believe it. Maybe I lost time. Maybe I did something and the machine is just reminding me. Or maybe the machine is the one lying, feeding me guilt until I choke on it. I don't know which is worse. But here's the part I haven't told anyone. Not the detectives. Not the manager, not even you. Sometimes, when the intercom clicks on, it doesn't play her voice or mine. It plays yours. I heard it last night, a whisper through the static. Keep talking. Don't stop. So that's what I'm doing. Talking. Confessing. Rewinding myself until the words don't mean anything anymore. Because if I stop, I'm afraid of what will replace the silence. And if you're hearing this, if my voice has reached you through a machine that shouldn't even be listening, then you understand. You're part of the tape now. And tapes, don't forget,